Thanks for being on. We're going to go ahead and get rolling. For those that just joined, welcome. And you haven't missed anything yet, but I'm going to go ahead and get going. And again, this is recorded. So for those that end up coming in late, they'd be able to review this later. Okay. So I call this business planning, like a business planning webinar for people who hate business planning. And I mean that, like, actually really, there's a part of me that really enjoys business planning. I do. I like the challenge of trying to envision where it is that I'm trying to go, how I'm going to get there, what are the problems I'm going to be facing, how am I going to overcome these obstacles. There's a part of me that really, really enjoys that. Here's the thing, though. I call this kind of the origin of this one-page business planning tool. This one-page tool was born out of a massive amount of frustration as it related to business planning back 10, 12 years ago. And I'm sure, like most of you, many of you worked for different organizations. The bigger the organization, usually, like for those of you that are here in the mortgage industry, when you've worked for bigger banks, usually those entities tend to make business planning a little bit more complex. Not always, but I found that to be the case. And I worked for a kind of a mid-sized bank where the business planning template and tool that they provided, man, it was really complex, and all of the information that was there, like, it's super relevant. And I think you could make the argument that for a manager or even for an account executive, for a loan officer, really helpful to go through it. However, it was so complex that I found that the individuals that I was leading at the time, like my sales team, really struggled with the complexity of the tool, how much detail was required in order to complete the tool, and then it not really being relevant later on throughout the year. It ended up feeling like it was this big kind of to-do at the end of the year, where it's like, December hits, and we've got to get this giant business planning template done. And then once it was done, it just never got reviewed again. And I just personally got tired of that. And so that's where the one-page business planning tool began. I don't know if he's on here right now. I have a client, Randy, who I don't think Randy's on at the moment, but who last year he reached out to me. He'd coached with me before. Several years ago, he wanted to coach again this year in 2021. And the first thing that he wanted to work on was his business plan. And he worked for a large entity. It's the biggest one I've ever seen. It was like 50 some pages. And I worked with him on that for over a month. And like, again, there's a lot of great things about it. Like for certain people, that can be beautiful, and it fits them, their personality and their skill set. But but most people that I have found, a tool that's that complex just doesn't work. It's not practical, and it doesn't get used later on. So the one-page business planning tool, that is the origin of the tool. That's why I'm here today presenting it like this. Now, when you take something like business planning that can be big and complex and a lot of nuance and a lot of moving parts, of course, if you're going to condense it down to one page, like, you're going to miss some things that could be really important. So I want to make that, I always try to acknowledge that up front. There's going to be aspects about business planning that you've maybe done in the past that I am not going to spell out today. And that's okay. The beauty of this tool is you can add anything you want, but the end result is you're going to have a one-page tool that you can print, potentially laminate, have on your desk, and review all year next year, and edit it as you're moving along as well. Like if you're setting goals and you end up wanting to modify those goals, like, you can edit that tool, reprint. And I just find it immensely practical when I'm coaching loan officers and real estate agents, where we've got this one-page business planning tool that we can review as the year rolls along. Okay. So I call this the big three challenges and what tends to be objections as it relates to business planning. There's three big ones that come up over and over again. And this is the first one we'll talk about really quickly today. And that is that the manager supplies the goal for the originator or for the real estate agent. There's a few of you on here today that are outside of mortgage and real estate. And I'm super glad that you're here. You'll have to translate a little bit today because most of the references I'll use will terminology be related to loan officers, some real estate agents. But this is a huge challenge. Again, like when I was managing my salespeople years ago, this is what it ended up feeling like. Like I'm handing a loan officer this giant to do. And like a lot of times, like the goals come down from above. So like the CEO is setting, here's the production numbers that we need to hit next year. And so that just kind of rolls downhill. And so then, it's like a region gets their portion of that company-wide goal. Then a district gets their portion of that goal. Then a branch gets their portion of that goal, and then all the way down to, let's say, a loan originator. Well, there's not much ownership in that, and I just found it was really, really tough to be motivated to hit a goal when you're not personally invested in that. And so, for those of you, and I know there's quite a few on here today that some of you I'm coaching even right now, and you're leaders, you're leading your organization. And I want to challenge us, myself included, to get your people involved and invested in setting their goals, their production goals for the year. It's huge. We don't have time to go any deeper than that, but that's a huge challenge. And so for those of you that are working on your business plan today with this one-page tool, this is your opportunity, right, to get personally invested on where it is that you want to go in 2022. Another big challenge, the second challenge, is that oftentimes, I mentioned this earlier, that business planning templates, they can be big, they can be what I say unnecessarily complex. And that is, it's demotivating. It is, again, it just becomes this issue where people begin to feel like it's this huge task that I've got to complete. And then typically nobody ever looks at it again. It's got so much complexity to it. And you guys all know, like if you're in mortgage and real estate, it's every day is crazy busy. And I love that part of the business. It's hard to even break away and carve out time to create a business plan. But like, who's going to set aside time in March to go back to a 45-page business plan and determine if I'm achieving these different benchmarks? Now, again, for you, depending on your position, there may be a place for that. You may have to do that at the company that you're at, or you might even have a tool that you've used in the past that you love that's got some complexity. Awesome. But I'm going to advocate today with this one-page business planning template that you can condense everything down into one sheet of paper. I had heard years ago, there's several CEOs who used to advocate for like their business plan was like an index card or a sticky note with 3 objectives on it. And it's like, boom, that goes on the computer monitor. Like that's the gist of what this one-page business planning tool is about. Condense it so you can keep it on your radar screen and in front of you, something that is easily reviewed. The third issue, you'll hear people, I hear people for sure who will say, and look, like this is an issue for me as well, where it's like, man, I've tried goal setting in the past. I've worked on business planning before, and it's like, I didn't get anything out of it. I didn't reach my goals, or, there's a myriad of issues. I didn't review the plan, all kinds of things that can go on with that. But what I'm going to talk about, in fact, what we'll jump into next here in just a moment, is this concept of goal setting and visualization. Because oftentimes, if you're not achieving your goals, well, first of all, oftentimes they're not written down. If I am not achieving my goals, usually the biggest problem is I haven't clarified what those are. I haven't put pen to paper. and put that in and gotten real good clarity on what that goal is. But another huge aspect is this tying in the goal itself with visualization. And so we're going to get into that today. It's one of my favorite things to talk about as it relates to business planning. So I'm going to make the argument today that for each of us, myself included, creating a written business plan will absolutely help you close more loans, more transactions, more sales for those of you that are not mortgage and real estate in 2022. On the right, you can see a picture. This is that's what this template looks like. And it's simple. It's so simple, and it's going to help you. I promise you, I've coached a ton of people through this over the last 10 years, and it works. That's just the best. That's why I can say it will absolutely help you close more in 2022 if you'll take the time to work on this plan. Okay, so we're going to talk. I mentioned earlier this concept of tying in goal setting with visualization and having an understanding of how that works, of targets and imagination. And this is a key premise with this. You see on the screen, it says, we move towards what we see in our minds. That is something that's absolutely true. We, the way we are wired physiologically, psychologically, the way that we are, the way that we function, we move in the direction of what we see in our mind's eye, and actually with what we see with our actual eyes as well. I tell a story when I was taking my motorcycle license endorsement test years ago. That was one of the things that they talked about was you're riding on your bike, you're going down the road, and you see an obstacle in the middle of the road. Let's say it's a downed tree branch, right? You've got to, instead of looking at the tree branch or whatever the obstacle is to avoid it, which a lot of people just naturally do that. They're looking at the obstacle and they drive right into it. We move towards what we see. So what they teach you when you're getting your motorcycle endorsement is you've got to visualize a path around the obstacle. That's where you've got to put your eyes. You put your eyes where you want to go, and your body, again, the way that we are wired, it takes those instructions and it moves that bike into that path. We move towards what we see. And there's a million examples of this. I think I've got a couple more in here that we'll talk about, but it's how our brain and our body, it's how it works. And it's why targets are so important. This one, I love this analogy. The way our mind and body works is super similar to a heat-seeking missile, the way a heat-seeking missile works. And so you have to envision, you can see on the screen here, you've got this missile that is fired at a target, which is the airplane that the missile is trying to strike. Well, there's a couple things happening with the missile. Number one, it's being propelled forward, right? So it's got a propulsion system and it's moving forward, but then it's also got a sensor, maybe multiple sensors, but we'll keep it simple. It's got a sensor that in this particular case is looking for heat signature. So it's looking for a target that's got heat. And so when the missile is launched, it zigzags back and forth because it is literally groping for the target. So it's being moved forward, but then it's moving this way, looking for a heat signature. And as it's moving this way, it found it. So it's got to correct. And it goes back this way. It saw the heat signature again. And so it begins with really wide turns and narrows down. And this happens in an instant, right? Like within a second, it makes these big zigzags down to a beeline for the target because it is being propelled forward and groping towards a target for this heat signature. Yours and my body works exactly the same way. We grope towards the target of what we see. And I think I've got another example here. Yeah, I mean, for those of you that have kids, when they're, I don't know, this baby is probably 6 months old, 9 months old, I don't know. But when when kids are learning, when they're learning everything, but same thing happens when they're walking or talking or whatever. It's like they grope towards the target. So like if a child is reaching for, in this case, this little toy, like their hand goes like this. It's exactly the same concept as a heat-seeking missile. There's feedback. Their eyes are providing feedback. Their body itself is providing feedback. And then boom, they zero in on the target. This is so critical. I don't know, hopefully you're making some of the connection here on how this applies for business planning. This is why having a clear target for you is so important for 2022, because you're going to move towards what you see. If you see obstacles, man, it's like, and that's my default. I'm really good at identifying problems, which can be like anything else, could be a blessing, but also a curse. If you are locked in on obstacles, man, like that's all you see, you tend to move towards those obstacles. You've got to identify the path around the obstacles, got to zero in on what is that target that I'm trying to hit. It's so critical. And I tried to make this argument because for you and for myself, because I know for years and years I would hear motivational speakers talk about, goal setting, and you got to write it down. And it's so important to write it down. And it's like, yes, it is. But why? This is why you move towards what you see. So there is an aspect of writing down your goal where it's like, especially if there's some parts that you physically handwrite, like there's an imprint that can give you on your brain, some wiring that's really helpful. But more than that, it's identifying this target that you're moving towards. It's getting a really clear target in mind. Here's another example. So you got a baseball player. So at the crack of the bat, right, the ball is up in the air, and it's like, how simple is it? Like for a professional baseball player, like a ball is hit, they see the ball, they run towards the ball, they lift up their glove, they catch the ball, they throw it in. It's like, when you really think about it, there's a lot of complexity going on with that, right? Like the ball is hit, the baseball player in the outfield is not thinking about, okay, there's the ball. Now I've got to focus on which muscles do I need to move to get my legs over where I need to go. Like, not all of this is happening automatically based on what the baseball player sees. So he sees the ball, his mind is computing the trajectory, the speed, the wind, all these different factors, and his body just snaps into action and immediately moves towards what he sees. And like, there's just some sequential pictures here. Again, it seems maybe really simple, but there's a lot of complexity of this happening here. And you and I can leverage this with regards to goal setting for 2022. The argument I'm making today is the most important piece is getting a visual target in mind. You have to know where you're trying to go, because we move towards what we see. Baseball player, a toddler reaching for a toy, heat-seeking missile. If you could look out on your desk right now, it's like there's a pair of my glasses. Like, if I like, the way that I am going to be able to pick those up is I look at them, I see it as a target, and my hand reaches for it. That's the way everything works, and it's how it's going to work with your goals for 2022 as well. Yeah, again, whether it's you take a drink of water, you pick up a pencil, anything you do, if you've given it any practice whatsoever, you're not consciously doing it. A baby zigzags because they haven't reached for a toy 1,000 times. And so it takes time for them to, for their brain and their body to make that connection, to be able to just immediately reach the way that you and I do. Now that's huge, because that means like the more practice that you and I put into identifying a target and striving towards that target, the more practice that you put into that, the easier it becomes. It may feel like this big zigzagging action up front. Absolutely, because you haven't done it before, or you haven't done it that way. But like, the more you do it, it becomes automatic. When you pick up when I pick up my drink to take a drink of water, that happens automatically. I don't have to think about that process. It just happens. Same thing as for yours and my goals for 2022. The clearer the target and the more practice you put into it, the more automated that process becomes. So again, once something that's really difficult can now become easy, and literally anything you do, that's how it works. If you're playing a piano, it's super difficult up front. The mind-body connection, it isn't ingrained yet. You don't know what the heck you're doing, but with time, right? All of a sudden, it's the same thing when you and I are on a keyboard today and you're typing an email. It's like you're not thinking about which finger to push. It's like it just goes because you've made those connections. It's so it's like I hate using the word secrets, but if you were going to pick a secret for business planning and goal setting, this is it. And there's not a close second place. It's like if all you did was get clarity on what your target is, and that's it for 2022, like you're miles ahead of your competition. I promise you that. So the key, set clear targets. If you get one thing out of today, you can hop off the webinar right now if you want. Set clear targets. If you can do that, you'll make huge progress in 2022. For those of you that are managing teams, like this is it. You want to see your team, you want to help your teams become more successful in 2022, help them see the value in setting crystal clear targets of where they'd like to go. Not, again, you may have to provide some input as a leader regarding production levels or units or dollars or whatever that you'd like to see them achieve, but like they have to own it. And so you want them involved in that process, and then just setting super crystal clear goals and targets. They get that in their mind. We move towards what we see. So the $1 million takeaway, our brain, our body, it can't tell the difference between something that is vividly imagined and real, actual experience. And I'm going to repeat that, okay? Our mind, our body cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and an authentic, real experience. And I'm going to, that's so key because like, if you can, like, let's say with the piano, it takes, let's say it takes 1,000 hours to be able to play at a certain level. Like if you could shorten the duration of time in being able to reach a certain level on the piano, instead of 1,000 hours, you could do it in 500 hours by incorporating visualization. It's a huge pickup because you can visualize playing the piano wherever you are. You don't have to be in front of the piano. Then again, our brain, our body cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real experience. So that's huge for you reaching your goals in 2022, whether that's your production goals or maybe that's a weight loss goal or something related to your family, vacations, working out. All of that is applicable. So I'll give you, this is like my favorite example of this. This is a basketball free throw shooting experiment that's been done and duplicated many times. And so I'll just give you the kind of the rundown of the most famous one, I suppose, and how that worked. And so what they did, they took this group of students at a college and they broke these students into 3 groups. Okay, 3 groups of students, and they're gonna shoot free throws. Here's what group 1 did. Group 1 practiced shooting free throws 20 minutes a day for 20 days. Okay. Actually, let me back up and start it by saying all the individuals in all 3 groups, they tested them. They shot 20 free throws and got a baseline test. So like out of 20, this kid hit 12, this guy hit, 15, this gal hit 17, right? Everybody has a baseline, right? Then they broke them into 3 groups and they had the individuals in the three groups do three different things. First group practiced 20 minutes a day for 20 days. That's what group one did. Group two, no practice at all for 20 days. So they instructed them, don't go to the gym, don't go shoot. Like, we're just going to test you again in 20 days, no practice. Well, what did group three do? Group three, they vividly imagined shooting free throws for 20 minutes a day for those 20 days. Okay. So group three, do not go to the gym, do not pick up a basketball, but 20 minutes a day, vividly imagine the practice of shooting free throws. Okay. And so that, like, we get really detailed on this, but it's like, imagine what the ball feels like in your mind's eye, pick out the target, think about your form, all this kind of stuff, right? As vivid as possible, because again, our brain and our body can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real experience. So what were the results? Group one, their shooting percentages increased by 24%. Group two, no surprise, did not improve at all because they hadn't practiced at all. Group three improved by 23%, statistically identical to group one. And think about that. Like, they did, just like group two did nothing physical for 20 days. They did not physically practice anything. Group three didn't physically practice shooting free throws either. All they did was, as vividly as possible, imagine the experience. It's like, that translated into an identical improvement. It's like, this is a story I share every year with the kids that I coach in basketball, regardless of the level. It's like, mental rehearsal is huge. You want to be a great shooter, you have to vividly imagine and watch yourself shooting at a really high level. You want to reach a new production threshold for yourself this year, you want to hit 50 million, like, you've got to get a crystal clear target and begin to vividly imagine the different things you'll need to do in order to reach that goal. We'll talk a little bit more about that today. So again, your brain and body doesn't know the difference between a real or vividly imagined experience. So operator instructions, right? Like, it's setting a clear target is the first thing you got to do. You got to get crystal clear on what it is that you're trying to achieve. Vividly imagine, mentally rehearse the actions that you want to perform at a really high level. And then you also are going to do actual practice and reps. Like sticking with the basketball analogy, like, I don't encourage the players that I coach to just vividly imagine themselves shooting. It's like, you incorporate that with real physical practice. Same is going to be true with any of the actions, habits that you're going to incorporate to help reach your goals in 2022. It's like, you don't want to just perform them. You want to include this mental rehearsal with it. So again, potential objection right now, you might be thinking, wait, I've set goals in the past, Jay, I've not reached them. What's happened? Usually it's a couple things. This is me right here. Often we lose sight of the target. So whatever, maybe you got crystal clear up front, but it's not written down. Maybe it's buried in a 12-page business plan that you never return to. And again, if business planning for you in the past has been something where it's kind of, the goal comes down from above and you're just told what the goal is, you're not personally invested in it, well, you're not passionate about it. And if you don't have clarity about where you're trying to go, and you're not personally excited and motivated and passionate about it, man, like, you drastically reduce the opportunity of reaching that goal. Another thing, we oftentimes begin to focus on negative targets, again, because we move towards what we see. Maybe you wrote your goals down in the past, but again, go back to the motorcycle analogy. Have you been, instead of focusing on the path around the obstacle, do you oftentimes find yourself focusing on the obstacle? Like, that's where your brain goes. That's where your mind's eye goes. Like, that's a huge, massive deterrent as far as reaching your goals. Quick story. I love to tell this story. This is Serena Williams. This was on Sports Center, maybe, I mean, it's like probably been 8, 10 years ago now. And it's not even, it wasn't even a story. It's just something I caught. And like, when I saw this, it's like, ooh, that's so good. Here's what happened. So she's playing in a tennis match, and she's playing really pretty poorly. And she's actually serving really poorly. Oops. And so as she's playing, she ends up yelling out like, I can't serve. And the result was she couldn't, it's like she believed it. In that moment when she's articulating, I can't serve, it's true, she can't. The way that our brains are wired, belief is huge. If you don't believe that you can do it, you cannot do it. It's the way hypnosis works. Like somebody becomes hypnotized, and it's like, they're told that there's a pencil on the table, but you can't pick up the pencil because it weighs 1,000 pounds. And like because they actually believe that they can't do it, they can't pick up the pencil. Belief is huge. So you've got to, not only do you have to have a clear target of where you're trying to go, there has to be this belief that you can do it. This quote here says, a human being always acts, feels, and performs in accordance with what he or she imagines to be true about themselves and their environment. If you could take a screenshot of that today, I'd grab that quote and I would mull on that. A human being always acts, feels, and performs in accordance with what they imagine to be true. If you imagine what's true about you is that you are unable to reach your goals, you're not going to be able to reach them. A huge part here is his believing that you can do it. So here's some false and negative beliefs. I would ask you, like, do some of these statements ring true with you? Are you perhaps like hypnotized with false and negative beliefs? Like, I'll never get another loan from that real estate agent again. Maybe a deal goes sideways. And it's like, that's never going to happen. Never going to be able to get that agent back. Or, well, I can't visit real estate offices. Like, with COVID and everything, they just don't let anybody in anymore. Okay. I hate calling my past clients. I don't have anything to talk about with them. My underwriters always add the wrong conditions to my approvals. Victim thinking in that, right? I always close 2 transactions a month. I just can't do any more than that. I've always done 2. That's all I'm capable of doing is 2 a month. My assistant and I, we don't get along. We just don't see eye to eye. We don't work well together. I'm no good in a group. I know I would bomb, right? These are false and negative beliefs. If I believe these to be true, they're true, because I'm going to act and feel and perform in accordance with what I believe is true. Like doing this webinar today, like if I woke up this morning and my focus was on, oh my gosh, like I hate presenting in front of a group, I'm gonna muff it. I always say stupid things on a webinar. It's gonna be recorded. It's gonna be, people are gonna see this, laugh at it forever. It's like that becomes the narrative, and that it's like, of course I'm gonna make mistakes on this today, but like the focus has to be on a target of like, how can I present this information in a way today that can serve people? How can I love and give and serve others today? That's putting my eyes on the path around the obstacle. So I challenge you today, all of us, like these beliefs that are articulated on the screen right here. Does your brain, does your mind, does your soul often go to this way of thinking? If so, it's like, it takes some time to catch yourself and begin to build a habit around creating positive narratives. That's why affirmations can be so helpful for people. It's like, because you're helping create for yourself a narrative where you begin to believe things that are true about you, but that you haven't been willing to accept in the past. It's huge. So you can build new habits. Like if you're thinking, like thinking about your 2022 goals, perhaps I know there's some folks on this call who, because I've talked to you, a couple I'm coaching. It's like your goal is to get to 100 million this year, and it's like there's a lot. I mean, like that's a challenge, right? If you're a loan officer, you're trying to get to 100 million for the first time. Like it's a big goal. It's an audacious goal. And there's so much that goes into that. There's going to be a lot of habits and disciplines and projects are going to have to be completed. And you may be thinking, well, man, like I'm not very good at creating new habits. But what we're talking about today provides, again, I hate to use the word a secret or a shortcut, but man, if there's ever been a shortcut as it relates to building new habits to achieve goals, this is it. This visualization of a target, mental rehearsal, believing that you can do it. Back to the free throw analogy, like as I mentally rehearse shooting free throws, right? I'm not visualizing misses. I'm visualizing nothing but net, swish, swish, swish. And as I mentally rehearse that, it's like, and my body can't tell the difference between a real experience or a vividly imagined experience. It doesn't know the difference. I am practicing essentially shooting perfect free throws. Well, of course, that's going to build confidence. Absolutely, that builds confidence. And so this isn't a matter of like relying on this teeth-gritted willpower to do something different. It's like you mentally rehearse it and then you do it. So kind of reset where we've gone so far today. I'm going to try to wrap this webinar here in the next 10 minutes or so, maybe a little less. Number one, I said this is the big takeaway for today. If this is the only thing you get set clear targets for yourself. If there's nothing else you do, you've got to get great clarity on where it is that you're trying to go in 2022 and get those written down so that you can see in your mind what it is that you want, what it is that you're trying to achieve. If you can't see it, how in the world would you ever get there? It's like to be like closing your eyes to shoot a free throw. It's like, I mean, what are the chances you're going to make it? I mean, maybe you make 1 out of 10, but like you don't even have a target. If you have been achieving at a lower level than you're capable of, you have not been reaching your full potential, chances are you're struggling with the goal setting, target identification piece of this. You got to be able to see in your mind what it is that you want to achieve, because we strive towards what we see. We move towards what we see, just like a heat-seeking missile. That's exactly how your mind and body are wired. And this is huge. Our mind and body work just as easily towards a positive target versus a negative target, right? That's the obstacle in the road with the motorcycle. If I'm going to move towards what I see. So if I'm always envisioning problems and obstacles and challenges, that's all I see. Like, where do you think you're going to move towards? Mental rehearsal, another way to say it would be a synthetic experience. Your mind, your body can't tell the difference. And we operate based on what we are passionate about and believe to be true. If you set a goal of 100 million, man, you and I will, if I'm coaching you, it's like, we have to help get you to a point where you absolutely believe that you can do it. And we've got a plan to get there. Belief is huge. So it starts with writing it down. And again, that 1-page PDF tool template that I'm going to provide for you guys today when we're done, I'll email that to you. I think it's just the simplest way to put pen to paper and get it written down, because it condenses everything to 1 page, and it's something that you can review later. Okay, so a 2022 business plan, what is it? It's a written description of how you want your mortgage or real estate platform, or if you're in, I know there's guys here and gals here today in insurance or financial planning, whatever it is for you, like it's a description of how you want your platform to look, how you want it to operate, and essentially the levels that you want to achieve. Like that's what your plan is going to describe. So 3 steps to complete your 2022 1-page business plan. There's 3 steps to this. Step number one is you describe your why. And I've only got a couple minutes for this, but by describing your why, what I mean on that is you have to, it's like you get clarity on where it is that you want to go, but the why is the passion that fuels that. That's why it's so important that you have ownership of your goal. That's your why. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why are you going into the office today? Why do you want to meet with 3 real estate agents this week? It's like, and that takes time to think about that. And I wish we had more time today. We spent an hour on the importance of crafting your why, but don't skip over that when you're working on carving out time for your business plan. You got to think about why it is that I want to achieve what I want to achieve. And a great way to do that is just keep asking yourself why. So it's like, well, I want to hit 100 million. Why? Well, because it would be it would give me maybe money as the driver. Well, why is that? Why is money the driver? Well, actually, as I think about it, there would be some personal satisfaction with that. Well, why is that important, right? And you just keep drilling down lower, get great clarity on why it is that you want to do and achieve what it is that you want to hit. Step 2, you got to define your targets and your goals. This is identification of that target, okay? And then step 3 is defining habits and one-time projects. These are the actions that you're going to have to perform to help you get to the level that you want to achieve. So if we used shooting basketball free throws as an analogy here, if I want to improve my free throw percentage, it's like I've got to figure out why. Why do I want to increase that free throw shooting percentage? And I've got to get great clarity on that. Then number 2, I've got to identify the target. So if I'm going to shoot a free throw, I've got to get a great mental picture of the hoop. And then 3, it's like, what are the actions that I have to perform in order to make the free throw? So you have form and your setup and your vision and all that. That would be related to increasing your shooting percentage. Same steps for creating your why, your targets and goals for 2022, and then the actions that you're going to have to complete in order to help you reach that goal. So when you get your one-page business plan tool, this is what it's going to look like. It looks slightly different than that. I'll show you the actual version here in a second, but here's the different sections on this template. Here's your why up at the top. And again, this is a fillable PDF. So you'll be able to type this in and save it as a PDF, save it to your desktop or a folder or whatever, which means you can edit it and change it in the future. But your why goes up at the top. And then your identification of your targets and your goals, that's that second box there. And so I'll give you some examples here in a minute so you can see how you might script out some of your targets and goals. And then the bottom 2 boxes, you have what I call like daily, weekly, maybe monthly habits. These are the things that have to happen on an ongoing basis. Like every day, I've got to get up and I've got to do my, for me, like my morning routine is I've got to walk every day. I have to, I've got, prayer and meditation time. I've got a gratitude journal. So I'm going to write down 5 things that I'm thankful for each morning. Like those are habits. And like, in order for me to achieve at my highest levels, those are daily habits that have to happen. So I'm going to write those out in the daily, weekly, monthly disciplines. The bottom box there is one-time projects. So that's something, it's like, let's say you're trying to get to 50 million this year. You have 1 assistant, you're going to need 2, you're going to need a second LOA in order to get there. Well, a one-time project would be the identification of another assistant and hiring them and training them. That's a one-time project. Once it's done, it's done. It's not something that happens every day, every week, every month. So those are the different aspects of the tool. When the actual tool I'm going to email you today will look identical to this. This is a screenshot from that tool. So it's pre-populated just like this to just kind of give you a head start, or just you can see some different ways of scripting out the why, the targets and goals, the habits and disciplines, and the one-time project. You can do it however you want, but like what I entered into the tools, what I have found to be easiest for me and for folks that I coach. But again, you're welcome to populate that however you'd like. But when I email this to you today, that's what it's going to look like. So I'm going to close with some business planning best practices. Set aside 90 minutes minimum to work on your one-page business plan. And I would truly, like, 90 minutes is the bare minimum. Maybe you need to break that up into a couple different days. I don't think I put this best practice on here. I didn't. So I'll just mention, like, one of my favorite things to do is to get out and get away. I used to work for a gentleman named John Battistane. He used to go to Portland. He lived in Boise. He would fly to Portland twice a year, and he would work on both business planning and life planning exercises, just to get away, to get off the grid, unplug his phone, and really, really focus in on nailing down his targets and goals for the upcoming year. So if you have a way to do that, man, that's an amazing best practice. But you're going to need at least 90 minutes to do that. Then I would encourage you to print and laminate that thing. At least print it, so that you can, and really it's like you print your one-page business planning tool, you've got it on your desk. Laminate it is just a great way that we tend to not throw that stuff away. You can write on that with a Sharpie and make notes on there. But also, it's like having that printed and on your desk is something that it stays in front of you. It's on your radar screen. You could also set a Outlook calendar reminder. So once a month, I'm going to formally review my business plan, or once a quarter is usually what I do with my coaching clients. But I print and laminate that thing, review your targets daily. And I've got a slide for that in just a moment. And then mental rehearsal daily. So that's that visualization practice. So an example would be, like, maybe you have call reluctance. You're a loan officer. You've got some call reluctance on reaching out to new real estate agents. Well, it's mentally rehearsing some scripting that you're going to use when you hop on the phone with a real estate agent. And it's working on asking compelling questions. So you're not just calling and checking in. You're not just calling and talking about yourself. Like, you're asking them strategic questions. We could spend 2 hours on that. But so key would be mentally rehearsing that. Like, that's that visualization process. The more you mentally rehearse that, the more practice you've then completed. Your body can't tell the difference between that and actually calling agents. So your confidence begins to grow. I'll close with this right here. So, like, this is I want to encourage you to maybe creatively think of a way to create an image that encapsulates your production goal for this year. So, like, this was an easy one. I have a client who I think he's going to be around 75 million this year, really wants to hit 100 million in 2022. So a couple months ago, we made this image, and I'm like, hey, like, this needs, you've got to ingrain this. It's like, I want you to see 100 million wherever you go. And so it's like, that goes on the dash of his car. That goes on his bathroom mirror. It goes on the refrigerator. So I would challenge you, as you're thinking about, like, maybe there's one target that you really, really want to hit. Maybe for you, it's a weight loss goal. And I definitely have done that. Use a marker and write on my bathroom mirror, like, this is the number that I want to hit. But these types of, this is just a really simple way to get clarity on that target. We move towards what we see. And you'll notice I've repeated that a lot today. You're going to move towards what you see. This is like a cheat sheet to get this, like, something visual, a positive visual, inserted into your brain. You want it wherever you go. Like, if you're trying to hit 100 million, this would be a great visual to have in front of you. And then lastly, man, this is just a great quote down here at the bottom here. So this is J.R.R. Tolkien is the guy that wrote Lord of the Rings. And I think this quote is actually out of The Hobbit. And he says, "It does not do to leave a live dragon out of your calculations if you live near him," right? It doesn't work to leave a dragon out of your calculations if you live next to him. And so what I mean by that is, like, each of us, like, there are dragons in your business, out in the business world. There are dragons. There are people who are trying to take business away from you. They want your past clients to come to them. And so it isn't going to work to ignore those challenges, to ignore the live dragons that exist. Like, you've got to create a plan. And this one-page business planning tool, perhaps for you, will be something that could help you take into account these dragons that exist in your business and help you reach the goals that you want to hit in 2022. And that is it, my friends. Man, you guys all hung in there. Amazing. Thank you for being on the call today. Really appreciate it. If you have questions, you can raise your hand or just type them into the message thing. Probably don't have a ton of time for that. But if you do, if you have a quick one, be happy to try to address those really quick. Maybe if I have the, I'll try to pull that up here as I'm closing. So if you type, so here's the chat. Okay. Oh, I had that closed the whole time. People were saying, good morning, guys. For those, Juan Pablo and Joe and Lori and Aaron, and good to see you guys today too. I'm sorry I didn't have my chat up while I was presenting. Perfect. But thank you for being on the call today. I hope that was helpful. I'm going to close. I will email you guys the tool. So whatever email address you used to register for the Zoom webinar, that's where I will send the one-page business planning template. Take a look at it. If you have questions, you email me. Be happy to help and support you in that. And I'd love to hear feedback too. Like, I'd love to, if you get it completed, you get your one-page business plan completed, send it to me. Be happy to put my eyes on it. But I'd love to hear from you. Like, how was the process? Did you feel like it was different, better for you this year? And then, yeah, stay in touch next year as well. Even if you're on today's call and you don't know me, like, love to, continue to build relationship with you and share with me as the year moves on in 2022. Like, how are you doing in visualizing your targets and moving towards those? So, man, I blew it. Yes, Aaron, thank you. And yes, Lori, I'm emailing a link to that one-page business planning tool right now. So I'm gonna, as soon as this closes, I'll email that tool out to everybody. Guys, thank you so much for being on the call today. Sincerely appreciate it. You guys were awesome, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.